If you believe that some secrets are buried not in the ground, but deep beneath the ocean where light dies and memory forgets, then stick around and maybe hit that like and subscribe. Because this one isn't just another military ghost story. This one's real. It started with a rusted lockbox, pulled from the bottom drawer of an assisted living room in Norfolk, Virginia. The kind of place that smells faintly of bleach and forgetfulness. The man who'd owned that drawer, Commander Alyssa Rehn's father, had passed 3 weeks before anyone realized what was inside. A few medals, corroded dog tags, and a single sealed envelope marked declassified, Agyr, 7, 1989. The staff didn't know what they were looking at, but I did, because I'd heard the whispers back in the day. Agyr, 7 wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't on any registry, any naval roll call, any veteran list. It was a shadow program, one of those if we tell you, we have to sink you type deals. And that's how I found myself tracing the life of a woman who'd gone to the bottom of the world's deepest trench and never resurfaced. Commander Alyssa Rehn, 28 years old, U.S. Navy, specialist in undersea atmospheric systems and experimental hull integrity, meaning she knew how to keep people breathing where humans weren't meant to be. When the Agyr 7 launched in November of 1989, Alyssa was the youngest operations officer on record to serve in a classified deep dive vessel. The mission brief, at least the portion that survived, spoke of seismic readings, unexplained energy signatures, and something about anomalous resonance beneath the Mariana Shelf. Science fiction to most. But Alyssa wasn't most. She'd grown up watching her father disappear on month-long sea tests, the kind of research trips that never made it into logbooks. She didn't join the Navy out of patriotism. She joined to finish the story he never told her. And so, on that gray November morning, she stood on the deck of the USS Anchorage, hair pinned neatly, uniform pressed, her name stitched just above her heart. Wind whipped off the Pacific, carrying salt and rain and the metallic scent of machinery. Dockhands moved like ghosts between crates of equipment labeled classified material, hydrodynamic core testing. The ocean, vast and endless, waited to swallow everything that mattered to her. By noon, the Agyr 7 was ready. A squat, reinforced submarine unlike anything before or since. Its hull was coated in layered composites the color of burnt graphite, its conning tower low and wide, designed to slip silently into trenches deeper than the Navy officially admitted existed. Inside, the air hummed with energy, generators purring, pumps thrumming like distant thunder. Alyssa moved through the control bay with calm precision, clipboard in hand, checking pressure differentials, ballast intake rates, and the O2 tank gauge that would soon become her obsession. She'd been trained to read them like a doctor reads a heartbeat. A minor fluctuation could mean a death sentence. That's when the captain's voice came over the intercom, sharp, commanding, but not panicked. Commander Rehn, bring us to depth level 3. We'll calibrate for descent. Aye, Captain, she replied, steady. Her crew, mostly young, half her age and experience, moved around her with nervous energy. They'd heard the rumors too, that this mission wasn't just about ocean mapping, that something down there was calling. Hours passed. The sea swallowed the light. Blue turned to green, green to black. Pressure crept along the hull, like invisible hands testing the metal's resolve. Every so often, Alyssa would glance at the O2 gauge, needle steady in the green zone, and exhale softly. It was almost meditative. Then, somewhere below 7,000 meters, the sonar began to pulse irregularly. At first, they thought it was equipment interference. Then, a pattern emerged, rhythmic, deliberate. Like Morse code, but inverted. Could be seismic, said Ensign Patel from sonar, his voice uncertain. No, Alyssa replied. That's not a quake. That's intentional. The captain didn't respond immediately. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed. Commander Rehn, he said, prepare for maximum depth. Alyssa blinked, her hand tightening on the console. Sir, we're approaching crush limits. Pulse stress act. That's an order, Commander. She hesitated. For the first time, she saw something flicker in the captain's eyes on the overhead screen, something like fear. Behind her, Lee and Patel exchanged looks. No one said it aloud, but everyone was thinking it. If we go deeper, we die? Still, Alyssa nodded. Flooding ballast tanks 2 and 3. Negative buoyancy engaged. The sub tilted nose down. The deck vibrated as the Aegyr 7 began its descent past the safe zone. Screws tightened. The metal sang. Alyssa checked the O2 gauge again, still stable, though the air was growing thinner, damp with recycled humidity. 7,800 meters. 8,000. 8,200. Something tapped the hull. Once. Twice. 3 times. Every head turned. Sonar, the captain demanded. Patel's fingers trembled as he adjusted the display. It's not on any known frequency. It's below us, sir. Then, the tapping stopped, and the captain's voice, steady but strained, came again through the intercom. Commander, dive to maximum depth. The words hung there like a death sentence. Alyssa's throat went dry. No one moved. Sir, she started. Now. And that was it. No explanation. No hesitation. Just the order. The Aegyr 7 Dove. Water pressure screamed against the hull. Bolts groaned. One of the pipes overhead burst in a fine mist, spraying condensation across the control room. The lights flickered red. Alyssa gritted her teeth, calling out readings over the rising hum of machinery. Depth at 9,000. Oxygen stable. Hull stress at 93%. Her voice was iron over panic. Her crew trusted her more than the captain now. Hold her steady, she shouted. But steady wasn't possible anymore. The sonar was going haywire, painting a chaotic mass rising from below, a shape too large to identify, too symmetrical to be geological. The captain didn't speak again. Maybe he couldn't. Alyssa took command. Trim the stern. Redirect auxiliary thrust. Maintain course until we see what's under us. No one disobeyed. Fear had turned to something else, something like awe, and then silence. No hum, no vibration, just stillness. Outside, the darkness seemed to move. Alyssa leaned toward the viewport, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. For a fraction of a second, something enormous glimmered below, a curve of light, like metal, or bone, or both. Then it was gone. When the sub finally stabilized, the O2 gauge flickered once. Twice. Then the needle began to drift down. That was the last transmission ever logged from Aegyr 7. And that's where I come in. 36 years later, holding that declassified envelope, reading the final line scrawled in Alyssa Rehn's handwriting before the ink ran off the page. We didn't dive into darkness. The darkness rose to meet us. The letter was real. The signature, faded but legible, belonged to General Marcus Ellery, a name that hadn't appeared on any active duty record since 1990. He was rumored to have died in a helicopter crash over the Pacific, though the coordinates of that crash were redacted from every known file. Inside the envelope was a single data tape, old, magnetic, labeled Aegyr 7 mission log, day 5. I found an archivist who could read it. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. When the recording began to play, the hiss of static gave way to voices. The muffled chatter of a control deck buried beneath miles of water. O2 gauge holding at 79%. Hull pressure stable. Captain, sonar contact, bearing 011, low frequency. Then, Alyssa's voice, calm, measured, but not detached. That's not geological movement. It's breathing. There was silence after that. Then a deep, metallic groan that didn't sound like any human machine. I replayed that section 3 times before I realized something. The groan wasn't random. It had a rhythm. Slow. Measured. Like a heartbeat through water. The next section of the log was corrupted, the sound warping into a digital hum. But faintly, just beneath it, you could hear someone whisper, "We're not alone down here." The archivist stopped the tape, uneasy. "Could be an echo," he said. "Could be damage." But I knew better. Echoes don't whisper back. The next file was shorter. Just Alyssa again, her tone lower, as if she were recording privately. "The captain's losing it. He keeps repeating that we've crossed into something ancient, something not meant to be mapped. Crew morale's fracturing. Lee swears he saw lights outside the viewport. Not bioluminescence. Patterns." Her breathing hitched. You could hear it even under the machinery hum. "The gauge keeps dropping, but the system says our O2 supply hasn't changed. It's like it's being used by something else." And then the sound of metal, distant, scraping, the hull flexing under pressure, followed by Alyssa's final words on the tape. "If anyone finds this, tell my father he was right. The ocean remembers." The recording cut off. I sat there for a long time after, the reel spinning empty in the player. The archivist muttered something about the magnetic degradation, said I should leave the tape for further analysis. I didn't. I wrapped it in cloth and took it home. That night, I played it again alone. And maybe it was the late hour or the hum of my old speakers, but I swear, between the static and the breathing, I heard a second voice. A man's. Soft, deliberate. Whispering her name. Alyssa. The tape snapped after that. In the following weeks, I dug deeper, through Navy archives, through declassified sonar reports, through the forgotten corners of maritime law. Every record of Agyr, 7 had been purged. Every name on its crew list was either missing, reassigned, or dead. But there was one anomaly. A requisition order for a pressure-resistant data core filed 3 days after the sub disappeared. It had been delivered to a private facility off Guam. The order was signed, again, by General Ellery. Only this time, the signature date was 3 years after his reported death. I drove down to Norfolk docks that weekend. The water was calm, too calm, the kind that hides things rather than reflects them. Standing there, I thought about Alyssa, 28, brilliant, loyal to a fault, following orders into the deepest trench known to man, and how her last act had been to dive when every instinct told her to rise. The Navy called it mechanical failure. I call it unfinished business. Because sometimes, when the wind dies and the sea is still, you can feel it. The faint vibration beneath your feet, like the heartbeat of something vast and waiting. Maybe Agyr, 7 isn't gone. Maybe it's still down there, somewhere in the dark, engine silent, hull intact, with a woman sitting at her station, staring at a gauge that keeps falling while something outside the viewport watches her back. And maybe she's still waiting for the order to rise. The Guam facility was exactly where the coordinates led, 3 miles inland, disguised as an abandoned satellite tracking station. The jungle had swallowed most of it. Rusted fences, vines through broken windows, the scent of salt carried on the wind. No guards, no signs, just silence. Inside, the air was thick with dust and old circuitry. Rows of consoles sat dead, lights long extinguished. In the center of the main control room, beneath a tarp half-rotted with mildew, was a cylindrical case, stamped with a serial code I recognized instantly. A 7, DC-01. The data core. The casing was heavier than it looked. I wiped the grime off the seal. Someone had welded it shut from the inside. I pried it open with a crowbar. Inside wasn't circuitry. It was glass, a thick observation viewport, fractured but intact, from a submarine bulkhead. Embedded within the glass, suspended like an insect in amber, was a handprint. Slender, feminine, pressed deep enough to warp the inner layer of composite. There was something else too. A slip of metal tucked beneath the viewport. A tag etched with a single word, surface. For a moment, the world went very quiet. I felt the air shift, as if the walls were breathing. My flashlight flickered, and then I heard it, distant, faint, but unmistakable, the same low hum from the tape. I turned off the light. The hum grew clearer, a pulse under my feet, rhythmic, alive. From. The floor panels vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere beneath me, deep under concrete and earth, water moved. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The hum was rising now, building into something that sounded less like machinery and more like a heartbeat. And then it stopped. I don't remember leaving the facility, just the silence afterward. The air felt wrong, charged, as if something immense had shifted beneath the crust of the island. I drove back to the coast that night and sat staring at the Pacific until dawn. At first light, a Navy patrol ship passed on the horizon, one of the newer models. Its name, printed in clean white letters across its hull, made my stomach drop. USS Agyr. No 7, just the name. Reborn. I tried to reach the Defense Department after that. Called every contact I'd ever had. Nobody returned my messages. 2 days later, my computer was wiped clean. The envelope, the medals, the tape, gone from my desk. Like they'd never existed. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is still and the ocean wind drifts in through the window, I hear it again. The low hum, the shifting air. And in that space between waking and sleep, I see her. Alyssa Rehn. Sitting before a control console that glows faintly in the dark, her fingers resting on the O2 gauge, her eyes calm. Behind her, to the fractured viewport, the deep is no longer black. It's full of faint, swirling light. Like stars seen from below. Maybe she surfaced somewhere else. Maybe maximum depth was never meant to be a measure of descent, but a threshold, a crossing. I'll never know for certain. But I do know this. When I looked down at that rusted handprint, the impression in glass too deep to be humanly possible, I felt something pressed gently against the other side. And I realized the old saying was wrong. The ocean doesn't keep secrets. It just waits for you to come back and listen.